Let's get spooky. This is our station Boo, where we explore the dark and mysterious corners of the world of horror, and we know that you are dying to listen.
And welcome to the Spooky and Kooky podcast of Earth Station Boo, where we talk all things horror, introducing our haunted host with the most. We have Lsya.
Hey, spooky guys and girls.
We got Karen.
What up, my horrorholics?
And I am Shannon, and today we have an amazing, fun guest, Thomas. Hello, welcome to the show.
Hello, everybody. Great party, isn't it?
Right? Yeah. And today
Yep.
we are going to be talking about Bloody New Year. Yay! Hey Horrorholics, it's Shannon. Earth Station Boo has just launched its brand new merch store. It's time to get your hands on some killer gear. From our fun logo shirts, cozy hoodies, Let's Get Spooky stickers, and Horrorholics Anonymous totes, there's something for every one of our lovely little ghouls. We offer our spooky designs on many different types of products to fit your desires. But if you happen to see a missed opportunity, just let us know. And unlike most of Stephen King's adaptations, you know what I'm talking about, you won't be disappointed with the quality of the products. Head over to our link tree in our bio, grab your merch, show off your favorite horror podcast, and most of all, let's get spooky. All right, so we have this film directed by Norman J. Warren, who came from a not so conventional background. Well, I guess for horror films, it's pretty conventional. And then had a pretty decent career as a British director. So he made this film, Bloody New Year, which doesn't happen on New Year's Eve. Well, part of it doesn't happen on New Year's Eve. It's a tale. So why don't we all give our initial thoughts on the film, and then we'll get into the nitty gritty. Thomas, since you're our guest, you get to go first.
I'd seen Bloody New Year before, mainly because I'm like a big, around the season of sort of like Christmas and whatnot. I like watching like Christmas horror stuff, finding like obscure gems, and there's no more obscure gems than beyond Christmas stuff, like New Year's related horror. And it's like a very small pool of interesting things because there's like New Year's Evil, and I can't think of much else. So I heard about Bloody New Year, and I was like, all right, I'm curious about this. And I think this movie is very odd, but I think very fun in its oddness. I think it definitely feels very distinctively British. It has a lot of just like fun, weird little details, even like a lot of, creative gumption that I think makes up for the fact that it can't quite execute everything that well. Particularly, we'll get to some of the effects work, I think is, leaves a lot to be desired. But it's kind of got, that British how-to, just like, pip, pip, we're going to keep going. Even if things don't work, that's fine. So,
Yeah.
I think it's a lot of fun.
It is. Karen, how about you?
I didn't know if it was a 70s movie or an 80s movie because I was like, whoa, this is not 80s. Okay, but yeah, I was watching it and I was like, okay, we're going to get a New Year horror movie. This does not take place in New Year. What's going on? Oh, it's British. Okay, cool. I like British humor. Why are y'all still going investigating? If I first see a ghost or anything weird happening, I'm leaving. I'm like, you know what? I'll swim in the ocean. Okay? I'll just swim. But yeah, I couldn't tell if there was a plot or not. And if it was a plot, I kind of missed it somewhere in translation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lsya, how about you?
Wow, I had to watch it in a couple parts. It was, I get the whole British humor and British will keep going forward and carry on. But yeah, I definitely agree with Karen. I couldn't figure out the plot. And, it was hard for me to get into it. So I had to watch it in bits and pieces. And yeah, it was definitely special. Not what I expected. But it was fun in its own weird, odd kind of way.
I think I had to watch this movie 3 or 4 times before this episode to make sure I was like in a right space for it. One of those times I watched it with my dad, and he was watching it, and he goes, "It's a British film." I go, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." From the late '80s. He goes, '80s? I thought that was from the '70s. So even my father, who is not a cinephile in any way, shape, or form, he is very much the let me watch homestead videos on YouTube kind of guy, goes, that doesn't look right. And he had a hard time following it. He was like, what is happening? What are they doing? So it was interesting to watch him watch the film that go around. But yeah, it this film does not like some of its other British brethren. It definitely is timey-wimey and nothing goes in a even line, and it bounces all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, it
Uh,
doesn't help that also the movie's so much about like, oh, we're dealing with the wreckage of like the 1959 New Year's Eve into
yeah,
1960, and then everyone, like you mentioned, is kind of dressed in like it almost feels like weird Scooby-Doo vibes from these characters. Particularly, there's the guy who has
yeah,
like the jacket, like the sweater around his like it's like this
with
is
the
like Fred shit
bolo.
right here. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Oh
Actually, that's
yeah.
what my roommate Chris was saying. He goes, "What are you watching? Some weird '70s Scooby Doo British
Yeah.
thing?" And he's like, shakes his head and leaves. And he usually watches all the bad movies and the weird movies. He's like, "Yeah, no, I can't do it."
Yeah, it's less Scooby-Doo and more like one of the weird Hanna-Barbera rip-offs they did of Scooby-Doo,
Hmm.
like Speed
Oh
Buggy or
yes,
some shit like that. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
got that kind of like
yeah.
copy of a copy vibe to it.
A
Yeah,
copy of a copy of a
it
copy.
was it was just you had to watch it multiple times just so you could understand what was happening. And I'm like, y'all. Um, but we're gonna kind of start from the groundwork of this film, and we'll build on top of it with all the
Okay,
different elements.
so just y'all know, it took them like 60,000 British pounds to make the movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you convert that to US dollars, it was like 76
Mm-hmm.
US dollars, 76,000 US dollars.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, the carnival scene was actually roughly about $1,000 US for them to have full access to the whole thing for an entire week. But it was off season, and that's why they were able to get it like
This
that.
is definitely a movie where like it goes by that Robert Rodriguez rule of like what do you have access to and what can you
Mm-hmm.
use. So it's like we have a
Yes.
hotel, we have a carnival, we have
Yep.
that sweater that guy's gonna wear around his neck. That's all we got.
Like, and we got an island. We got an island with
Yeah.
a hotel on it.
Right? We got a
So
boat. We also have one of those
About,
boats.
yeah, about,
two boats. Two
Three
boats.
boats.
Oh, that's true.
yeah, that's true.
So for those who haven't seen the movie and are like, I don't even know if I want to see the movie based on how y'all are talking about it, I'll give you just a quick synopsis of it. There was a party back in 1959. It was a New Year's Eve party. The government happened to be experimenting on an invisible plane that happened to crash on the island where this hotel was at. And things went kablooey, and all the people who were there at the party got stuck in a time loop. Now you hop to quote unquote present day, which was 1987, and you have a group of British kids who save an American chick at a carnival from some rotten carnies. They get on a boat, get stuck on the island where this hotel is at, and all chaos ensues. The people who are stuck in the time loop are coming through and trying to like grab them and absorb them into this whole thing. The carnies follow them and try to attack and kill them there on the island. And by the end of it, everybody gets taken and now is stuck forever in the time loop that is the Grand Island Hotel. Very weird film. I know I missed a lot of things, but those were like the highlights, the main points.
You had the Herculean task of like
Yes.
summarizing the plot. I think you did about as good a job as anyone could with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
with everything
Yeah.
that we had. Um, but
And it took
most
five
of
weeks to shoot.
Yeah, it did. So the main setting for this film is the Grand Island Hotel and this spooky island. Let's talk about the island, y'all. Let's talk about this hotel and let's talk about the island. Lisa, why don't you go ahead and go first?
Oh my God, when they first got on the island and there's a horse skull, and they were talking about that, and I'm laughing, and I'm like, yeah, like you're gonna just ignore it and go on. And then the guy got stuck in the barbed wire, and to your right, you see a sign that says danger or trespass, and they kept on going. It was like there's all these signals and the weird people in the jungle popping around, and they're just ignoring it. Yeah, the island was kind of weird.
Yeah.
And the plane wreck, and he's like, I want to play. It's like he wanted to play with the plane wreck, and his girlfriend's like, no, we don't have. Didn't think anything was odd about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. It was.
What about the hotel?
It was the hotel. Yeah, it's like when the maid came in and she got all comfy and she's asking her boyfriend, "Where's the maid? What maid?" It was the hotel, and it was like, you were New Year's Eve. No one was there, and there was no electricity, and it was. I don't know. The consistency is just so weird for me. I had to watch it a couple times.
No, I get it.
But it was, I don't know. It's very hard for me to get into this movie.
No, that's fair. That's totally fair.
I mean, the continuity, it was different. Yeah, no, that's all I really have to say about that right now.
That's fair. That's fair. Thomas, how about you? What did you think about the hotel and the island?
Yeah, I mean, I want to start at least a little bit with the carnival thing because the madness starts at the carnival, really, right? Where it's like they get in the middle of like this huge thing going on with like, oh, the one Janet, I believe, is the name of the American tourist who like
Carol.
is being harassed by a bunch of like toughs for some reason, and they end up like going on this madcap chase, like insane chase that fucking happens from the carnival
So
all the way to the
insane.
boat. And Janet's like totally
Yeah,
fine with it, by the way. Just like, yeah, I'll go with these strangers, sure.
Yeah,
Fine.
like
Carol.
yeah,
Her name is
Carol.
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 Carol, sorry. Carol's the
Carol.
one, right.
Janet
Shockingly, these
was
characters
the
might run
screamer.
together a bit. Yeah,
Yeah, Janet's the screamer.
gotcha. Okay.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they go on like this whole madcap chase, which I do want to credit. The one guy who I kind of recognized, one of like the guys who was the ride operator who ends up coming back, the big guy, burly guy.
Oh,
His
the one
name's
who was in
Steve
Shaun of the Dead?
Emerson. Yes, exactly. He's in
Mhm.
Shaun of the Dead as the bartender guy who says,
Yeah.
the don't stop me now.
Yeah.
That's him,
Mhm.
right? And he's
Yeah, Big
a very
John.
prolific British stunt actor who's like done stunts for like
He
James Bond
is.
movies and Harry Potter movies. He has a very illustrious stunt career, and he does some insane stunts. Like when he's holding on to like the boat, and then he like falls over into the debris. Is actually a genuinely really good stunt. That's also just baffling once again. Like that's the thing is where like I get where somebody's like, oh, if you're really invested in the plot, you might not trying to get invested in the plot. At least you wouldn't like find this a lot to latch onto. But I think this movie just has an insane kind of like consistent weird like logic of just like no, we gotta get out of here. Just get out of this carnival. We already showed you enough of the carnival. We can't pay for any more days of the carnival. We gotta go over to the boat. Then we gotta go into the island. And once again, these people who just have like less self-awareness than like most average horror protagonists of anybody. Just like, oh
Oh
look, this
yeah.
seems a bit odd, but I don't know. We don't have nothing else to do. We could like stay at home and listen to BBC One, or we could go over to this island hotel and hang around. And yeah, I love the location though. I like the different like areas that we see of the hotel, like the big kind of like a lobby area with like the giant staircase and then the billiards room where which is the one who just really wants to fuck her boyfriend when they're trying to
That's
like,
Leslie.
deal with Lystra? Yeah, that she is like literally jumps that dude's bones. At a
So many
certain point. Just
times.
like
Let me
like but there's one point where like just pounces on him when they're up in like the attic or
Yeah.
whatever.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah, when they're looking
how
for
with him get
the
some
fuse
electricity
box.
going first. Yeah, exactly.
I guess
Oh
that's
my
what
goodness.
teenagers do, man. Like they hump each other. I don't know.
I ugh. But the fact that he's like so uninterested is what killed me. Where I'm like,
I know.
a chick is literally throwing herself at you, and you're just like, no, I'm good.
In fairness, the offer of what about if we did it on a snooker table isn't as
Yeah.
interesting
Yeah.
to me. Of all the places in that hotel room, not
And
on a
she's
snooker
petting the
table.
table. She's
Yes.
petting the table, going, ooh.
Well, I'm thinking, like, how dusty and dirty is that table?
Right?
Yeah.
They're still
Exactly.
playing on it though. He's like sitting there like playing pool on it, and I'm like,
Right?
y'all get that clean really quick? Okay.
Yeah.
Was there anything else about the island and the hotel that you loved or even didn't
Um,
love?
I mean, I like it. Like I mentioned, I like the location a lot. I like the various different rooms
Hmm.
that we get. I think there is a certain atmosphere, especially with just little details like it's not even quite the hotel. I think it's like that little kind of side house they go to, where it's like they
Hmm.
open a door and it leads off a cliff. Just like
Yeah.
weird shit like that. There's just a
Randomly.
weird surprise around every corner of this island, which I find kind of like that keeps you on your toes in a way that once again the plot doesn't invest you, but I'm just more invested in like what door they're gonna open and find like I don't know a seaweed monster or some bullshit that's gonna pop up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Karen, how about you?
I mean, like, so we have like the carnival, which I was like, okay, shouldn't there be like more people at this carnival than what they have? Okay, I guess you can't, spring for extras. Um, I did love the carnival, but I was like, that medium start screaming. I'm like, why are you looking into the crystal ball and screaming? You're not giving me any type of explanation here. You're just screaming. And then you get to the island, and I'm like, oh, this is a nice island. Stuff's gonna happen now. And then you just have random shaking of bushes and stuff, and I'm like, is that is that supposed to be ghosts? What? Is it a
Hmm.
monster? What's going on? But like the hotel had a really good potential of being a main character in and of itself. Like, Crimson Peak, where the mansion was like a main character on itself. Um, and this one could have been that way if it wasn't for the cheesy acting and the dialogue and just everything else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, to be perfectly honest, I don't think they spent enough time at the hotel back in 1959. I kind of wanted like a little bit more because then they could have those characters be a little bit more in the haunting portion of it. So
Yeah.
like the maid, she was great in like the second half. We didn't really get her in the first. So that would have been cool to be like, while like people are getting ready, she's bringing stuff and like seeing that interaction and like really getting like the pieces together. But to
You
me
really need like the
personally,
Lloyd the bartender scene from The Shining in this movie. You
Yeah.
need
yeah,
somebody to like be going
Yeah.
around and
honestly,
seeing like the ghosts pop up. Yeah.
honestly,
Yeah.
this hotel was like a dollar store version of the Stanley, in my opinion. It
Yeah.
had the potential, but it was obvious that the budget wasn't there.
I mean, yeah,
Um,
because you also had that ghost in the mirror. I was like,
mhm.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
what are you here for?
yeah,
Yeah.
and see that's my thing. I'm like, I feel like they should have spent more time in the 1959 to kind of
Hmm.
establish the haunting and the time loop. Because to be perfectly honest, the first time I watched it, I was like, and I was kind of reading about it and online. I was checking out its IMDb and all that kind of stuff, and I'm like, time loop? What are you talking about? Like, what time loop are they like now part of? So it wasn't until I watched it a second time, or actually no, I strike that. I actually rewound the movie and was like, okay, wait, let me go back. Let me start this off again. And then I'm like, oh, so this whole opening sequence where you just have music playing, which that music is not on Spotify, it is not on Apple Music. I'm extremely upset because I actually dig the song and I can't even listen
Yeah.
to it. but but the music like or the hotel like had so much potential, but they didn't spend any time there. And I'm like, why? Why not? Like, show them watching movies in there beforehand or, make the connections. And there was just no connection making. But the hotel itself, I I liked the dark corridors and everything. I just you could tell that it was very small spaces that they were working with. And so you didn't get to see a whole lot. And I would have loved to have seen more. But I do agree with you, Thomas. The how they used the island was great. They had the beaches, they had the rocky cliff, they had the field, they had the forest, the little
Hmm.
caretaker house. Like that was cool that they had all the little different spots that people could interact in and the story could be told through.
Hmm.
So with that being the case, let's go ahead and just talk about this time loop thing. How do we all feel about the time loop?
Uh,
Uh,
okay. Let's get in this time loop, okay? All right. So you get the explanation from the ghost that's inhabiting old girl's body.
Hmm.
I forget what her name, Janet. Was it Janet or
Leslie.
Janet or Leslie? I don't know, but
Leslie was the one who was kind of like possessed and like had the weird makeup and all that kind of stuff.
yeah. So I don't need that, that explanation. Okay. Give me to me like in the first half of the movie. Let's lead up to that. No, we have this little news sequence that we see when everybody's in the room and not paying attention to the news. And I'm like, y'all not paying attention to this news? The TV's on, but there's no electricity. Hello. Y'all don't see anything wrong with that? Okay. And then she goes this whole little description of what happened in 1959 with this whole time warp thing, and I was like, huh?
Hmm.
What? Number one, if you're trying to make it a plane invisible, okay, I can understand that. I mean, it's called cloaking. I understand that. But how does that cloaking device keep y'all stuck into a time loop? Okay. I could see the whole island disappearing off the face of the map because you're trying to make um a cloaking device for planes.
Like it could
But
become a Bermuda Triangle type thing.
it could
Yeah.
become a Bermuda Triangle type thing where people just randomly come onto this island. But this whole time loop with this device makes no sense at all. Like I could talk to my,
Yeah.
my sister-in-law about science and she'd be like, that makes no sense. Scientifically, that makes no sense. What are you
You don't
watching,
even have
Karen?
to be a scientist to go, how does being invisible equal a time loop?
Yeah, but I like watching stuff with my sister-in-law. She's like, the science is so bad here. Why are we watching it? Or she's like, you know what? The science is pretty plausible. That's great. But
Yeah.
again, cloaking device does not equal time loop.
Yeah. Like I feel like there was something else happening. Lisa, how about you?
well, I agree on many levels with Karen for sure, but cloaking device and the time loop, um, it felt like more like instead of doing invisible, or it felt more like the Philadelphia experiment, and that's what happened, like when it went wrong. That's what I got from watching the news thing and then the time loop thing. And I'm like, huh, that sounds like the Philadelphia experiment when all those soldiers and the ship disappeared and all that. But it still didn't make any scientific sense because it just like, I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah. If they had shown maybe, like you said, in the beginning, like maybe the plane or something had crashed into the party, that probably would have been a better connection. And then you could probably accept the time loop and the invisible plane and how that all worked and how the scientists screwed up and did something they weren't supposed to do.
Yeah, that was
But other than
inferred
that,
later on.
yeah, it was just like, eh, no,
Yeah. No, I get it.
makes no scientific sense.
Thomas, how about you? What are your thoughts on the time loop and Christmas in July?
Yeah, I just think honestly with the time loop thing, it's definitely like my least favorite part of the movie, if nothing else, because like you don't need it at all. because like the
Exactly.
time loop thing doesn't really explain any of like the fun supernatural stuff that happens.
Hmm.
So you should have just like basically done kind of like what to bring it back up The Shining. Like they never explain why everybody's stuck in the July 4th ball or the
Yeah.
Overlook, and that doesn't matter at all. It's just like that's their purgatory. It works way better. It's just like
Yeah.
this is a purgatory everyone's stuck in the hotel, as opposed to well, the cloaking devices and all this other stuff that's explained. It just feels deeply unnecessary to the degree that
Hmm.
like I almost don't really think of it as a time loop because when I think time loop, I think like Happy Death Day, Groundhog Day, that kind of thing, where just the
Yeah.
same day repeating
Right.
over and over again,
Yeah.
as opposed to just like it feels like the day doesn't end, like it's just that permanent New Year's like
Hmm.
period forever to like the ghosts in the hotel, which is just a lot more fun to me as opposed to like, well, you see, the cloaking devices and all this other. It's like, who gives a shit? We don't need that.
Exactly.
I mean, it
Ex-
would probably been better, like, you said, if it was just a never-ending day.
Yeah.
hmm.
Hmm.
Just going like, Groundhog Day, the gate day keeps repeating and repeating and repeating.
Hmm.
And then you have these new people that come in and they kind of disappear, like in The Shining, and only show up like every so often to like certain individuals. Could that have been even better? It's like, oh, it's Groundhog's Day, but on this island and it's 1959. God, we're stuck in this horrible era.
Yeah, I mean, like, I would say the only thing that kind of made it time loop-ish is the fact that like she was on the boat and she was going away and it pulled her back in. Like almost like once you get out so far, you automatically come back. But outside of that, it wasn't really a time loop. It was very much like a purgatory, as you said. Like, but it's like it's kind of like what happens anytime somebody dies. They like relive and they become a ghost. They relive like the last moments of their life. Like I feel like that's like a normal trope in horror. So I'm like, why did you have to add this weird sci-fi twist?
It's a
That
hat in a hat. You really don't need
yeah,
it.
yeah, you don't
Yeah.
need it. You don't need it. Like you're right. It doesn't push the plot at all. It doesn't add anything to the film. You can take it out and the film will still be exactly as it is.
Yep.
Like,
Yeah.
and you can still even have like the plane crash, and it was supposed to be an invisible plane, and that could be why all the people died originally. But like, yeah, it was weird and it was just unneeded. But it was kind of a homage to 50s B movies. It was a homage to the atomic age and all the craziness that happened in horror movies then. And you can see it I feel like in a number of different areas of this film. Thomas, what about you when it comes to like those references throughout the film? What's your take on it?
I kind of like that. This definitely feels like a movie. Like the most 80s thing about it is the nostalgia for the 50s kind of deal,
Mm-hmm.
where it's like, oh, we're like looking back 30 years prior. Because like you have certain bits where they talk about like, oh, yeah, this is one of those deals where like you dress up and like you see some of the ghosts are greasers, which I love. I love
Yeah.
Yeah.
dumb
Yeah.
fucking like greaser outfits. I'm gonna sing with John Travolta after this. And then I really love the one guy's just dressed like James Dean the whole time after
Yeah.
like they get up in their costumes and whatnot. Just stuff like that. I think it works on that level where it's like, oh, people are like nostalgic about this time that also is like endlessly repeating in this hotel. It's kind of like this
Mhm.
weird cycle thing. And I think it also kind of this isn't less of the 50s thing, but what I like about sort of the fact that like there's so much Christmas decoration stuff up and there's the New Year's connection. This movie evokes like that weird period between Christmas and New Year's
Oh
where it's
yeah.
like you don't
Mm-hmm.
want to put down the
Yeah.
decorations, but also you haven't gotten to the point where you can get drunk and count down to Happy New Year yet. So that feels like more the purgatory, honestly, of just like we're kind of just like in that weird week where we
Oh
haven't
yeah.
like stopped
Yeah.
with all the
Yeah, the
Christmas shit and
limbo,
it's past Christmas, yeah.
the post-Christmas limbo, or yeah, limbo. No,
Hmm.
totally get that. Lisa, how about you?
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. I do see some of the similarities because I was raised on those kind of films with my grandfather. So there
Mm-hmm.
are a few things there that reminded me. It had that nice little kind of 50s atomic age to it, which I thought was kind of fun. for the movie. Yeah, I did like the James Dean guy. That was kind of funny.
Rick.
Yeah, I'm horrible with names, but I remember what they look like.
For all these
The
distinctive characters, how dare you?
I know, right?
yes, I'm an artist. I'm a visual person. I won't remember your name after the show.
Get
But
it?
I'll remember what you look like.
Right.
Uh, no, I did like the ghost in the mirror at the beginning, and I was just
Mhm.
like, why is she crying? That I think that was kind of cool, actually. Like,
Mhm.
was she crying because the girl was wearing her dress and then they started making out? Or was she just crying because she felt sorry for them at the
I thought she
beginning?
was crying because she couldn't get any anymore.
Yeah, she'd have to watch. You're messing up my dress. That's not
Uh,
fair.
Karen, how about
Anyway,
you?
I mean, I do like the homage to the atomic era, but this is supposed to be the 80s, right? And it's supposed to be like
Late
some sort of
80s.
late 80s.
wait,
And I'm sitting there looking at it and I'm like, so is it supposed to be an apparition film or are we just going to, be strictly in like the whole 50s motif here? Um, like one of the scenes, it was really remnant of the 80s. Is like, the gore part of where the zombified dad kills like
Mhm.
um Rick, I want to say, with
Oh, with the boat motor.
yeah,
yeah.
I was like, that is really 80s, man. We have like, the blood. Well, you don't really see it, but it's inferred. So
Mm-mm.
I'm like, that's a bloody death, and everyone else
They
kind of
had it
died,
recorded
huh?
where they had it recorded where it was bloodier. The producer on the film
Oh,
edited the crap out of this film. I think one of
Oh
the
yeah,
reasons why
that's
it didn't do so well was because of the editing, because there was a lot of stuff that Norman wanted in there that they took out that made it
that's more late
gorier.
80s. Yeah, because like this is like MPAA at its worst, where like this is right around the same time as Friday the 13th Part 7, where that movie's
Yeah.
infamously just completely neutered and has like a very similar kill with like a freaking Weekend at Bernie's guy gets his head
Hmm.
destroyed by like the like a leaf blower or whatever, and like they cut that completely. They cut all that stuff out. So it makes it, especially because the weird thing is with this one, right, is that it was in theaters in the UK, but it went straight to video for the US, I believe, right?
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
yeah. There was a couple of theaters who did show it technically in October of 87. But it was not like it was like they had a hookup in Britain. That's the only reason why that theater got
Mm.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I understand like, the toned down violence because, they wanted to make sure it met the certain classifications, but sometimes you need that violence to tell a story. Okay?
Yeah.
And some of that story was missed. All right? Like I didn't know if there was a plot, okay?
Hmm.
And
I
so I
mean,
I was getting my storytelling through the violence because I knew these ghosts were upset, but didn't tell me why they're upset. But I guess
here
because they're fleshy bodies and they have no fleshy body, they're just taking revenge.
here are three movies that came out that same year for
Oh God.
comparison. Evil Dead 2,
Okay.
Hellraiser,
Mm.
Mhm.
The Monster Squad.
Yeah, that movie would not have. Mm-mm, yeah.
It was definitely not on par um
Oh,
with
mm-mm.
those. And it it didn't, even though there was nods to 50 style horror films, it they weren't executed well. And I think that's the biggest thing for me for this movie as a whole is the lack of execution. It was either you have to know that it was edited bad, the budget wasn't there, or they just did it bad. It's one of those three options. And I feel like with a lot of the homage to the atomic age just wasn't executed well. Like even when they were checking out that plane wreck and the ghost pilot and the little pieces of mirror that were all hanging up everywhere, it just it just the lack of execution in it. It just fell flat. It didn't. It wasn't like a great nod to those style movies, but at the same time, it wasn't right for even the current time frame, the current period of film. But with all of that, let's go ahead and dive into the special effects because there's so much to talk about. Lisa, our special effects guru, you've got the floor.
Well, during the I did like during the scene where they were getting chased by the guys at the fair, the blood was pretty good on the guy's head. He knocked his head. I was pretty proud of that.
They did use real fake blood.
Yes,
Yes.
they did use real fake blood, which I was proud of. I was like, yay, we got some real fake blood. Some of the scenes that I remember that I was giggling at was the vacuum cleaner falling down the stairs. It's like they threw it down the stairs. And I'm like, how did someone not get hurt? The net. And then as soon as she got out of the net, because the rope was getting her, and she's screaming, and it's not cutting into her. It's just like there. And she's saying, my face, my face. And then there was the seaweed monster thing that came out of the table, and he's beating it, and there's that little bitty puddle of goo stuff instead of
Ectoplasm.
yeah, but it was like not even a lot of ectoplasm. It was like a little, it's like all of a sudden it turned back into the table. I'm like, what? It looks like someone took a garbage bag and cut it into strips. I mean, all MacGyvers in the special effects. I know I'm notorious, but oh my God.
I won't lie, it gave me a little bit of like old Greg vibes.
Yeah,
it did.
Old Greg vibes.
It did.
I'm old
That's
Greg.
definitely, yeah. The zombie thing, dad thing, whatever, that was okay. But yeah, no. Considering I saw Evil Dead 2 in the movie theaters when that came out. Yeah.
Thomas, how about you?
I mean, I would say that I think the best special effects here are the simpler ones where they just do like really quick in-camera stuff. Like there's like the earliest one is like during the 50s party, there's like the mirror gag where it's like she's getting dressed and set up and then she gets pulled into the mirror, stuff like that. Or when they're watching the movie and the Sheik pops out, I think it's actually pretty cool and effective just because like they do it very quickly and it's just like more done in a cut than anything else. And he kills the James Dean guy by slashing his face.
And burning him, supposedly.
Right, burning him allegedly, yeah. And even stuff like they do a lot of like the reverse footage of like, oh, the mic stand is coiling up, the mic wire is coiling up, or the billiard balls are like going back into the center, like with the reverse, right, the footprints, stuff like that. I think that's the better stuff in terms of like actual execution. But even the stuff where like the biggest thing, like my background currently is like the big scene where they try and do like the thing from the first Nightmare on Elm Street where like Freddy like pushes against the wall and it looks like it's like rubbery.
Yeah.
And you can tell it like the effect doesn't work because you can see the translucentness and it doesn't actually like it's breaking. The effect isn't working. There's a couple times where that happens. But I think at the same time that kind of just adds to the weird surreal quality of this movie. Where when stuff like that happens, it's less of like, oh, the effect didn't work as opposed to like, the fuck is happening here? What's going on?
Yeah.
What exactly is going on here? Which is like I think the main driving force of the movie more than the plot or the characters is just fucking weird shit's happening. Like when they're going into the kitchen and like all the pots and pans are like going around. They dump that one greaser into the big vat which burps. Just shit like that. Like sure, fine,
yeah,
whatever.
What about the girl when she opens the door and all of a sudden like it's snowing and
like when Carol gets snowed on.
Right.
Yeah. I was like, yeah.
I also really like with the makeup stuff. You mentioned Evil Dead 2, but like this sort of evokes a lot of like the low budgetness of the first Evil Dead. I think with a lot of like the makeup of like the ghosts and stuff like that. And also I think the best sort of atomic age kind of homage we get is like the one of the group who like ends up getting like her like Steve Emerson puts his hand through her chest and then she becomes like half blown up. She looks like she was in the middle of like a nuclear blast. because like
Yeah.
half her hair is
Yeah.
missing, and it's like it looks as if she's just like some kind of weird nuclear holocaust victim, which I
Right.
think
Yeah.
once again like works for it, even though it's clearly cheap. It still has a
Hmm.
bit of like that creative ingenuity, even if once again not extremely effective, not the best makeup effects, but I find a charm in it.
Yeah. There's the gimmicky 50s
Yeah.
gimmicky kind of style thing to it.
Mhm.
Karen,
Yeah.
how about you?
I mean, I did like the whole, elevator scene where like, they're pulling out and try to pull her back in. Cause
Mhm.
reminds me of Freddy Krueger and also the other movie, Day of the Dead, where the lady
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
in there having that dream and
Yes.
next thing you see hands come out.
Yeah. Yeah.
That kind of
Hmm.
reminds me of that. And I love that effect, really. I mean, I wish it was like used more because that's just creepy. The wall comes out and try to eat you. But even like, with the guy getting his arm ripped off, that was actually pretty decent.
Hmm.
Now, there were some effects I was like, you could have done a little bit better with that makeup job, but okay.
Hmm.
Like the quick cuts, fabulous. Fabulous. I love the quick cuts. The seaweed monster, you know what? That seaweed monster looked better than, the creeping terror monster.
It
Okay.
did. It
Yeah.
did. It
It,
Yeah.
did.
it,
It
Hands
it,
did.
down.
It definitely
Hands
did.
down.
100. Yes.
if they put that in the creeping terror movie, I'd be like, yeah, I can see that. I can see that.
Yep. Yep.
Not a big huge carpet
Oh yeah.
with the tarp. But it did give me like the whole old Greg vibe. But I enjoyed the seaweed monster because you got to see, a monster. You're like, oh, it's a
Hmm.
monster. Yay. Okay. Why is he here?
Yeah.
Where did
I
he come
know.
from?
Right.
Like what happened? Um did I miss something? But you know what? I was like, I'm just here for the ride. I'm just gonna be here for the ride.
Yeah.
That whole, sand, the quicksand, I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
for you suck you in, right? Not, oh
Well, I
no.
mean, you have to think that this is nothing on this island has happened the way it's supposed to, like in the real
True.
world. So,
True. See, this is why I believe it should have been a Bermuda Triangle type of situation. Because nothing happens like
yep.
it's supposed to. Like you open a door and you're like, oh no, I fell off a cliff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which
I hurt myself. It's okay. I got a little flesh wound, leg all broken and shit.
tis but a scratch.
It's a bad flesh wound. It's that.
Tis but a scratch.
Scratch.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, no, special effects wise, some of it was done great. Thomas, like you said, like some of the basic stuff done great. The movie scene where Spud gets taken out works great. But then you have other things like Leslie's makeup. If you're going to be doing a close up like that, why would you not have that on point? Why would you
Yeah.
not spend that little extra bit of time, maybe even some money, and make sure that it was on point? There were a lot of things that I was like, okay, this is kind of cool. Yeah, it's gimmicky, but a lot of horror is gimmicky, and I'm okay with that. I do think it was actually kind of interesting the scene where Rick opens the door and is like suddenly like hanging on the door, like just dangling there on the cliff. That actually was a real cliff, and he had no safety gear.
Oh no.
Oh, no.
and
Oh
No.
suppose
no.
and supposedly, I'm using my air quotes, y'all. Um, this was also shot like a couple of times. And our big John, or Paul, I think is his character's name in this movie, um, didn't do the stunt. It was the guy who played Rick. He did all of it without any safety gear, hanging over an actual like cliff,
Oh
which I'm
my
like,
God.
Like how far was
Oh,
that drop
good for
though?
you.
yeah.
I want to say it was actually a pretty decent thing. Like he could have easily broken a leg if he had fallen.
Okay.
Maybe not have
It's,
died,
it's
but
a it's a flesh wound.
like
Right.
might not have died, but he definitely would not have been uninjured from that fall.
Yeah. It definitely feels like they're kind of trying to go by like the the first Evil Dead kind of vibe of just like we don't have a lot of time, we don't have a lot of money, so we're gonna make this like as efficiently as possible. I think the big distinction though is like even at such a young age, Sam Raimi knew like, oh, let's use a lot of shadow. Let's use a lot
Yeah.
of things to like cover up the fact that our effects kind of look shitty. And
Mhm.
even then,
Mhm.
especially the more that movie's been like put into like 4K and shit, the more you see like all the seams of it. But there's
Yeah.
such like a massive like energy going off of every single like shot and just like having cameras on 2x4s and shit that you don't really
Mhm.
notice that stuff as opposed to this movie shoots a lot of its stuff in like either broad daylight or with like a couple gels that
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
kind of are trying to mask it and it just doesn't quite have that same ability to like mask all of the imperfections.
Yeah.
Let's do that. Just mask
Well,
it.
and you, I think it does mean something to also understand where this director got his start, which was adult entertainment.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
he was
Adult entertainment. You mean
Yes.
corn?
softcore,
Corn.
softcore
Softcore.
porn. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. Yep.
Not the hardcore, but the softcore. Okay.
Softcore. Mhm. At least according to his Wikipedia. Yeah, that's where he got his start directing. He
Okay.
actually had quite a few films. But if you watch his films, you can definitely tell by the way things are shot that that was where his start came
But
from.
yeah.
Like the way the lighting is. Because think about it. Think about all the best scenes in this film and how they could relate to that other genre. Like I think like the bedroom scene where she sees the ghost and all that, that scene I thought was shot really well. Like lighting wise, dimension movement, the whole night, everything was done really, really well.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just saying. I'm just
Yeah.
saying.
So this was his
Mhm.
last film he ever
His last
made.
horror film, at least. Supposedly that he did a couple of other feature films after this.
Yeah, I'm seeing like a couple short films that are like more recent, and then he like died in like 2021, I believe.
Hmm.
So yeah, this is at least like the last major work that he did.
Mhm.
And would
Yeah.
you consider this a major work, clearly, from our discussion?
I mean, in Britain, probably.
Yeah.
I could see this. I could see this being like a film that a lot of like horror buffs in Britain would see. In America, no.
Right, yeah. Especially when like the only way you can watch it's on like Tubi in full by
Yeah.
3 in like the worst
Yeah.
resolution possible.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
part of the reason why it has horrible resolution, a lot of the original film got destroyed. And so there was
Mhm.
like only one copy left. And that's why it's the way it is because it wasn't a great copy to begin with. It was film that had not been taken care of. And so getting it transposed to Blu-ray and DVD and now what we can stream, it just poor technology. So I can only assume that it might have looked slightly better.
Maybe.
Martin Scorsese's crying at this lack of film preservation of such great works.
I know, right?
You know what
Really.
though? I honestly do hate the fact that there is horrible film preservation
Yeah.
because
Oh yeah.
as an art teacher once said, even if your art is shit, shit is still fertilizer. So we need to preserve even the bad stuff so that way you can learn and grow.
Yeah.
Oh no, yeah. I mean, look, even like over the Halloween season, I finally watched The Hitcher because it's been so
Mhm.
unavailable. But the thing is,
Yeah.
On Max, a major streaming service, they have it once again in a similar copy that's like 4x3, looks like it's taped
Mhm.
off VHS. It's
Yeah.
disgusting. I was so
Yeah.
offended that I had to buy the 4K Blu-ray that just came out because this movie's like awesome, and I need a like fucking better copy of it. I need to see Rutger Hauer's Baby Blues in crystal clear HD.
Rutger Hauer.
Yes.
The Hitcher. That was such a great movie.
Great movie.
But
Yes.
it's also,
Right?
the whole film, preservation goes back to like Shannon said, we should preserve it because there are like Doctor Who missing episodes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Yep.
like, oh, we don't care about film.
I mean, we talked about it when we did the Creeping Terror,
Yeah.
Right.
which that hasn't released yet, but we did the Creeping Terror.
Yeah.
And we even talked about that, where it was like, had the film been preserved correctly, had the roles not been stolen, had things not been, done the way that they were, we might have actually had a decent movie.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And I don't know. I feel like we've lost so many great things because people just didn't have respect for the art.
Exactly.
This is a whole other like discussion that we'll be
Right,
having.
yeah.
Yes.
We'll do a
Yes.
whole episode just on like the history of horror films and the preservation of them. But one of the next things I kind of want to talk about is like the actual acting in this film. All I'm gonna say, Leslie, nobody would have freaked out like that, even if you were claustrophobic with the net situation. That's all I'm saying. Who wants to take on this topic? The acting
I
of
will.
this film.
Oh my gosh. The acting was just awful. My face, my face.
Mm-hmm.
And that he's yelling at her to stay still. It was awful. But all the acting was just awful.
Believable person.
That's all I have.
Not one believable person.
Unbelievable. Nope.
I couldn't
You
believe
know what
any of them.
Carol was? Carol was good.
And remind me, which one is Carol again?
She was the American.
Right.
Yeah.
I
The one who was getting picked on
right,
in the
yes.
spinning thing.
Right. Yeah, I think the thing is with like the acting here, the best performances are from the people who don't have any lines. Like Steve
Yeah.
Emerson, like the
Mm-hmm.
the big
Yeah.
brutish guys. Like there's also that one guy who gets his head like twisted around and he just
Yeah.
looks
Yeah.
gnarly. He's got like the big blood dripping down his face. Like that's all
Yeah.
like those guys just know like that's all we need. Hell, you had a better performance than most of the other people, and this is like that little like the thing at the end of the stairs, the little like muppety lizard thing
Yeah.
that tries to eat
Yeah.
one of them.
Yeah.
Way
Yeah.
better performance,
Yeah.
better puppetry.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
I mean,
Facts.
even Seaweed Monster had like better
Yeah. Yeah. Even Seaweed
than the people
Monster
with
was
lines.
better.
I was like, y'all ain't feeling this, are you? I need to believe that you're, feeling this. But it was kind of, it fell
Mm-hmm.
flat. It really did fall flat. And I was like, my niece could act better than this. And she's
Yeah.
there's the 11-year-old and the 7-year-old. What's going on?
Yeah. I mean, you even have the simple fact that they were all like, ah, and they're like completely freaking out. And then the next minute it's like, okay, so what should we do next? You guys want to go check out like the theater room?
What? No,
yeah.
if you're gonna be on edge, be on
No.
edge. I'm like, no, I'm gonna stay right here.
Like, like Janet, the screamer. Like, darling, you either are going to be the damsel in distress and you're going to scream the entire film and like be that girl, or you're not. Like, pick it, one or the other. I mean, for the most part, she was kind of like on like the anxiety inducing train, but at the same time, she was just so willing to go along with so many things that if she was really freaking out, would she have done the thing? None of it made sense. None of the acting made sense to me. Like, the guys were slightly better, but not by much.
No, it's a lot of just the British kind of stiff upper lip, kind of like, oh, what's this? What we
Mhm.
come across here? And you can tell that like a lot of these people like didn't have like if you look at their IMDb's, not massive careers, especially in film. I know like
No.
the woman who played Leslie, Susie Aitchison, she has like a huge like BBC sitcom filmography, but not
Yeah.
necessarily in like leading roles in the film. And I guess that makes sense. I usually with like acting, I don't blame the actors as much as I do the director.
Yeah.
Because it felt like they were at as lost at sea as their characters are. Really,
Yeah.
just like how bumbling around, not able to do much. Just they're not given a lot, and I think it really shows with just what they're able to pull off.
I mean,
Oh yeah, no, definitely.
even Warren
It's
said that it was a nightmare making this.
oh yeah. Oh yeah. But like I think the acting was maybe the best you could get when you had maybe a poorly done script.
Mm-hmm.
And no offense to Norman, but maybe his direction wasn't that great. And then, of course, you have that producer who, took all sorts of things that probably could have made the film better out because it didn't fit what the studio wanted them to do. Um, but there's just like all sorts of like little things, but at the same time, like in the scenes themselves, you have to sit there and say, was that really the best take? Was that really the take that they're like, yeah, this is the one we have to do?
It feels less like best take and more like only take. I think that's the
Yeah.
other thing. We got to do this quick. We got to like keep going. It's like, like Karen was mentioning, this feels so haphazardly put together and
Hmm.
like so low budget that it's just like we have no time for like multiple takes.
Yeah. Nope, totally agree. So on
Yeah.
that note, let's go ahead and wrap up the this portion of the show. So everybody's going to give their final thoughts. We're going to rate it. We do skull ratings here. So
Okay.
1 through 5, pick a skull. We never give 0 because people did work hard and they deserve at least one skull. Thomas, go ahead. You can start with your final thoughts and your skull rating on the Bloody New Year.
I mean, for all the faults that we like pointed out here, I still think this movie's very fun to watch, if nothing else, because it's 89 minutes long. It doesn't like overstay its welcome to me. And it at least has, like I mentioned, this kind of weird madcap, like around every corner, something weird's happening kind of vibe to it that makes me at least charmed by it in a way that, I'm a big fan of like finding very weird horror movies that just are like very below the radar and have no cultural impact whatsoever. And just
Mhm.
finding like these interesting ones that at least are like somewhat interesting in terms of just like weird shit just happens at every turn. And I think for that, I would give it a solid 3.5 skulls myself.
Okay.
A lot of fun, entertaining. Once again, I think by default the best New Year's horror movie, unless someone really wants to defend like Terror Train to me, which I'm not. I'm not part of that camp. I'm a lesser Jamie Lee Curtis horror one for me. But yeah, so Bloody New Year, I think it's fun for what it is.
Okay. Lisa, how about you?
I just couldn't get into it. I mean, it was a little campy. It was definitely odd, but not kind of the odd that I like. But for the screaming, that definitely helped a little bit. And some of the better effects, like the puppet monster and the seaweed creature and the guy's arms ripping off and the stretching. I'll give it a 2.5.
Okay. That's fair. Karen, how about you?
Um, okay. So the acting, mm-mm. The dialogue, mm-mm. The twists and turns of the hotel, kind of liked. I digged it, you know. This is probably one of the movies that should be like remade to make it more sense, more horror in a way, because it wasn't really horror for me. I was like just watching it. Probably watch Creeping Terror again.
Don't say those words. You don't mean them.
Aaron, stop cussing on the show.
Special effects were pretty decent. I did like the cut effects, you know. I did like, the fact that they're watching a movie while making a movie, hilarious.
And actually, that movie that they watched is a great film. It's a fantastic film.
I haven't seen the movie, but the fact that they're watching a movie within a movie, hilarious. But for me, I would say I would give it, 1.5.
Okay.
Now I need to watch that movie,
Okay.
Fiend Without a Face. Find that.
I love
Yes.
that movie.
Yeah.
It's a great movie.
I'm going to give this a 3. I think it has a lot of potential. I think there are elements of it that are pretty good, especially for being a British horror film that was not part of its like Britain's heyday of horror. So I will say, like, I think for what it is, it's not a horrible film. Is it something I'm going to watch all the time? No, probably not. But this might pop up onto my while I'm doing laundry thing, or I just need something in the background. I might throw it up just for, shits and giggles. But definitely not a favorite. But it's not a horrible film. Just not the best, and that's okay. It's now my favorite time of the show. And probably going to be Thomas's least favorite part of the show. But before we strap you into the electric chair, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to our fun, lovely little ghouls, so they get to know you a little bit before you get tortured.
Sure. My name is Thomas. I host a podcast called Cinema to the Letter. I like long walks on the beach, and um, no, I mean I'm one of those, like, in terms of like the horror fandom thing. I'm definitely one of those people who like was a scaredy cat as a child, but would kind of look through like the pursed fingers kind of thing at horror movies. Would always try and avoid the horror section at the blockbuster, but at the same time would kind of drift close to it while I was looking at family films or whatever. And yeah, I really like, especially, practical effects related horror. I like really like sort of that 80s, 90s kind of period of transition there. I have a lot of fun with. And yeah, I just I like lots of gore.
Groovy. Groovy.
Yeah.
So now it is time. We are strapping you into the
Really?
electric chair. And it is time for my favorite part of the show.
He
Okay.
loves these.
So cool. I do. I don't know why, but I do. I love this portion. So first question. Who is your favorite horror villain?
I gotta give it up to Chucky. I think
Okay.
honestly, Chucky is my absolute favorite, if nothing else, because he goes through such an interesting evolution over the course of his movies and show,
Mm-hmm.
where he starts off as just like, oh, I'm a serial killer trapped in this doll body, I gotta get out of it. And then he finds acceptance with it. He's like, you know what, I'm the killer doll, and that's fine. I want to keep being that killer doll and put myself into other little Chuckies and whatnot. And then also has acceptance for his, his queer child, gender fluid, all
Mm-hmm.
that. Really respect that. While also being, my favorite thing about Chucky really is just the fact that he's the blue collar slasher villain. Because you
Yeah.
get the sense that, like, if he wasn't a serial killer, Chucky would be like a truck driver and would be
Yeah.
screaming obscenities at people. If he could reach the pedals, Chucky would be like, fuck off, get out of my face. I'm trying to move all this. I'm trying to haul all this. Come on. I
Yeah.
love Chucky.
Yeah, he went through the whole 5 stages of grieving.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
That poor
Yes.
little doll.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So the next question. What is your horror hot take? So what is an opinion you have when it comes to horror that a lot of people don't agree with you on?
I find myself to be a defender of the maligned sequel quite a bit. Like I'll just, like, a more recent one, I'll state outright. I think Halloween Ends is kind of a modern masterpiece. Truly. I think that's
Okay.
one of the, I think honestly it's like the second best of those Halloween movies, and has like such a weird kind of vibe to it that I just find way more fascinating than her sequel retread that we get with a lot in that particular franchise. I tend to like the kind of more ambitious, weirder ones. Like, another example of that is like, I prefer Exorcist 3 to Exorcist, because that movie
Okay.
is just like wild in a way that I find fascinating. And even another one, this is probably the hottest take possible, is that I'm not a fan of either version of Salem's Lot, even the old 70s Toby Hooper one, but I am a fan of Return to Salem's Lot, which is the weird theatrical sequel
Yeah.
that Larry Cohen did.
Yeah.
Mainly in terms of just getting director Samuel Fuller to play a former Nazi hunter who hunts down vampires. That's way more interesting than anything in either version of Salem's Lot to me.
I mean, that was like
Okay.
that was my favorite. I actually enjoyed that movie a lot too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, someone else. Finally.
I mean,
Yeah, that one I think is more watchable for sure
Yeah.
compared to the other
Agreed.
ones.
like
Like
Helps
I
that
think
it's
I've
also
watched
not
that
3 hours
one.
long like the miniseries version.
yeah,
I
Yeah.
actually think I've like rewatched that one more often.
we had it on beta, so like I would like to shove it in and watch it, and my brother be like, "You
Yeah.
watching that again? Leave me alone. Leave me alone."
And
My favorite.
all right, Kiss Mary Kill. Mwahaha. Your choices are Leslie, so the one who gets possessed and has the weird funky makeup and got punched through and all that. Spud, who got taken out by the movie character, and Carol, the American who was going to be our final girl until the island decided to suck her up and put her into the mirror of the hotel.
Okay. Probably would kill Spud, if
Okay.
nothing else, because they just find him greatly annoying. Um, I would
Fair.
probably, I guess, kiss quote unquote Leslie, if nothing else, because she's also the one who was like really jumping on her boyfriend's bones, right? As
Mm-hmm.
well.
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
seems
Mhm.
very
Yeah.
eager.
Yeah, she was the one with the
I'm down
snooker
to help
table.
out. Yeah, for sure. Uh, and then I would marry Carol. She just she seems to have a bit more of a stability to her.
Really? Bit more
And I want to get her out of
stability?
that hotel.
Man, she like just follow these British people. Just like, hey, they're cool.
She needs guidance, Karen, okay? She needs somebody to help her out.
You know what? She was only there because they saved her.
Yeah,
Right.
that's
I
true.
mean,
Otherwise, she might have already pieced out. But they saved her. They got her on a boat to get away from everybody. So she was kind of like, okay, I guess I'm stuck with y'all, but thanks for saving me. So I'll kind of like tote along just because, you were cool and did.
I would have put a
That is a subplot we're missing from that movie is just her being like, I should be polite. They're like all British. I don't want to like and they saved me. They're very
I
polite
mean,
people. I'll keep
about
going along with this.
I would have pulled a
about
Roger.
halfway through the film, she did kind of do that.
Right.
After everybody changed clothes, she was the one who did sit there and go, so today's been weird.
Right.
Went to the
Yeah.
fair. You guys saved me. Now we shipwrecked on this island. Instead of just like listening to all the stuff that happened, I'm like, oh wow. Wow. Halfway through the film, you gotta give a recap of what's already happened.
I would
Delayed survival instinct for
I
sure.
would have
Yeah.
straight pulled a
Mhm.
Roger from Night of
Hence,
the Demon.
guidance needed.
Guidance
Exactly.
needed
No,
for
she needed
sure.
guidance. I would have pulled a Roger from Night of the Demon. I'd be like, you on your own,
Right.
white girl. Jumping out the window.
All right. And final question for you, Thomas. You have a dinner party. You have 6 seats at your dinner table. Who are they?
Okay. I did think long and hard about this.
Mm-hmm.
So amongst my crew, I've got Carrie White, because she needs a fun time.
Which
She needs
one?
to get out of the house. Sissy Spacek.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
I don't acknowledge Chloe Moretz or what's her face from May in
Yeah.
what was it, like 2002? No,
Yeah.
all Sissy Spacek. She just she needs a social event. She needs like somebody, like she needs to be part of like a big group thing. Like I think the invite would help her out. Then Lieutenant Kinderman. I'll also go specifically George C. Scott from Exorcist 3, if nothing else. Guy loves talking about movies. Would love to talk It's a Wonderful Life and all sorts of other movies with that dude. Then the next 3 I have are kind of like the fun, especially like can get wine drunk, where I've got Margot Kidder Barb from Black Christmas.
Okay.
Wonderful. Wonderful time at the party, I'm sure. Also, M. Hayward from Nope, Kiki Palmer's character.
Nope.
I think
Yeah.
would be just
Yeah,
full of
yeah.
energy. So fun. And my classic pick, Dr. Pretorius from Bride of Frankenstein. Cattiest motherfucker there. Love it. Would love this. Those 3 just like talking shit. Perfect dinner conversation. And then finally, my 6th slot, I wanted to have a monster. Wanted to have somebody weird, but also I got to have somebody who's conversational. I'm going Brain Gremlin from Gremlins to the New Batch.
Oh, nice
High society,
choice.
talking Susan Sontag and all that. Like, you got to have some classness at that party. Brain Gremlin, perfectly.
There you go.
Illustrates that.
Well, congratulations, Thomas. You survived the electric chair. Yay!
I'm just glad you guys can afford lethal injections.
Your sticker will be in the mail.
Great.
No, seriously, you do get a sticker that says I survived the electric chair.
Oh shit, cool.
Yep.
Okay.
I figured if we're gonna have you like answer all these questions, you might as well get a sticker out of it.
For sure. Yeah.
Our lovely little ghouls, tell us, would you have even gotten on the boat with the British kids and to get stuck on that island like Carol did? Let us know in our comment section. You can find us on all the social media things. We have Instagram, we have TikTok, we have X, we have Threads. We also now have a Blue Sky and a Lemon 8. And of course, we've got our Facebook group. So please come chit chat with us. We'd love to talk to you all. You can also subscribe and rate us wherever you listen to podcasts like Apple, Google, Spotify, and we are on YouTube. So leave some comments, share the links. We love all that engagement. But before we go, it is time for us to tell you where you can find us personally so you can continue to chit chat with us. Thomas, where can they find you?
I'll at least just plug Cinema to the Letter is my podcast. We're at Cinema number 2 Letter on various socials. Basically, with that show, we do 6-episode seasons, and each episode is in reference to an anagram we've created for cinema. So I'll use, right now we're doing our Criterion season, but I'll just plug, at least our last season was about ghosts for the horror crowd. So we did our first episode's a C for classic every time. And so we did the original House on Haunted Hill for ghosts.
Nice.
Our I is an I for indie, which we did Insidious for that. Then
Good
the third
choice.
one's an N for new, which we did The Night House.
Okay.
And then our fourth is an E for egregious, where we do a bad movie, and we did the 90s Casper. I know some millennials think it's a hot take.
Yeah.
But look, we talk a lot about that movie and the weird, creepy implications of who Casper is in it. And then
I still dig it.
Our fifth is usually is an M for masterpiece, and we did The Others, the Nicole Kidman movie.
Okay.
And then A for our final episode of the season is an A for atypical, and we did Ghost Watch, the
okay,
British
nice.
TV special. So yeah, we do that every season. We know that we follow that kind of 6-episode thing, and like I said, we're at Cinema number 2 Letter for there, and I'm also at Not the Who's Tommy on mainly Blue Sky and Letterboxd.
Cool.
Cool.
Rock on. Lisa, where can they find you?
You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and also on YouTube.
Groovy. And Karen, where can they find you?
I am on Facebook. I'm on Instagram, Threads, Twitter, formerly known as X, formerly known as Twitter.
Has it been that kind of day, Karen?
It has been. I'm on Reddit and I'm on TikTok.
Rock
Same.
on. And I am Shannon. You can find me at Spill Tea Wine Media Mind on all the things. But listeners, our lovely little ghouls, thank you. We really do appreciate you guys listening and sharing the podcast and all the fun stuff. So thank you so much. We really can't do this without you. And stay spooky, our lovely little ghouls.
And this has been the Spooky and Kooky podcast of Earth Station Boo.